Leaked photos show that the astronauts discovered more than what NASA has ever told us during these missions.
I always wonder, why did humans really stop going to the moon? I mean, think about it. For years, NASA raced to plant its flag on the lunar surface.
He describes large structures like hangars, roads, towers, and machinery. Evidence of a lot of activity, industrial activity.
But then, just like that, the mission stopped. No more footsteps, no more giant leaps.
The images revealed a mysterious dome-like structure on the moon, connected by smaller domes.
Did astronauts see something they weren't supposed to, that NASA never even dared to return? Well, these latest leaked photos of the moon might hold the answers. Stay tuned to find out.
Traveling alongside Apollo 11 was a mysterious object, like this one filmed on a later mission. It could be only one thing: a UFO.
What are these things? Domes, rock formations, or some sort of a hidden alien base? NASA isn't sure, but the fact that they haven't once dared to send a mission to investigate is sign enough. The person in charge of photos at NASA back asked his boss about them as well, and believe it or not, they were silenced and told never to talk about them again. And I think you remember what Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, said about that mysterious bright light. He claimed it followed them around for quite a bit during their first approach to the moon before NASA decided to write it off as an unidentified object. But the real shocker came after touchdown, when Neil switched over to the medical channel and told the officer how something was watching them from the crater. Could it be that this was the same crater as the one Armstrong talked about? And is it possible that whatever was watching them might still be hiding in these domes? And I'm not going to lie, Neil wasn't normal after he returned from the moon. Remember that cryptic speech he delivered at the White House? What does he mean by removing one of truth's protective layers? Did Neil really see something near these domes inside the crater back in 1969? Well, whatever the truth is, it's now buried with him. And the fact that there's evidence of industrial activity on the moon, including large tracks, means just one thing. Neil might have been right about something watching them on the moon. Jumping back to that mysterious light Neil talked about, did you know that Buzz Aldrin saw it as well?
Houston, there's a light out there that's following us. Technically becomes an unidentified flying object.
You know, there's something terribly wrong when NASA astronauts are talking about UFOs and whatnot. And while this footage isn't exactly new, it's crazy how these interviews have never made it to mainstream media. I mean, think about it. Some of the first men in the history of humanity to ever leave orbit are talking about seeing unidentified flying objects. That's insane. And then you have the domes as well. Pair them up, and it makes no sense why NASA is busy exploring the edges of the cosmos when the real mystery is right there. Now, unlike Armstrong, Buzz denied seeing any structure or strange activity on the moon, but I have a hard time believing that now. NASA probably forced the entire Apollo 11 mission to keep their mouths sealed about what they saw. Still don't believe me? Just listen to what Edgar Mitchell had to say about it.
Didn't want the Soviets to know, so they devised to lie about it and cover it up.
That's the sixth man on the moon, folks. And want to know the interesting bit? He was a strong believer in extraterrestrial life. Now, Edgar didn't exactly see anything strange on the moon, but he did claim to have information about how aliens have not only been observing, but visiting us for years now. Quote, unquote, "We are not alone. They have been coming here for a long time." That's just creepy at this point. He also shared how people at NASA and high-level military officers both knew about alien life and their visits to Earth. And look, I'll be honest with you guys, considering how massive the universe is, it's hard to believe we're alone. But at the end of the day, I still have my doubts. But after hearing about it from astronauts who've been to the moon and back, I think the truth is actually being hidden from us. And as the Pentagon continues to declassify more and more footage of strange UFO encounters, it makes me wonder, what else are they hiding? In case you haven't seen the declassified footage, check it out here.
There's a whole fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh.
There's a whole fleet of them. not the words you'd want to hear while following UFOs over the ocean. These clips were recorded by the US Navy during some standard drills a few years back. There's a total of 3 incidents, with the first one being recorded in 2005 and the other 2 in 2015. And if you look closely, you'll see how the Navy pilots seem to be following a strange oval-shaped object. It's clear this object isn't from Earth, considering all the fluid movements and sharp turns. Plus, notice how all this just seems so normal now. Maybe that's why these clips weren't classified back then, because everyone would have just freaked out. But either way, you can't even call this footage edited or anything, because it was literally captured by the Navy itself. It also makes me imagine all the top-secret stuff they have stashed away at the Pentagon. Since we're on the topic of Navy pilots, Gordon Cooper, anyone? Before becoming an astronaut for the Mercury 9 and Gemini 5 missions, Cooper was actually an Air Force pilot. I think you know where this is going. Anyway, there's no footage of what he saw, but it resonates a lot with that declassified Pentagon clip we just saw earlier. Cooper and his squad were flying over the ocean when they saw a fleet of more than 100 mysterious objects zoom past them. He claims it was unlike anything he's ever seen in his life. I believe him. That was his first encounter with UFOs, and trust me, it completely changed his perspective. Perfect guy for the job though, right? NASA decided to bring him on board as a pilot for their missions after his Air Force career, and the things Gordon claims he's seen can't even be imagined. He said both the military and NASA were aware of aliens and their existence for the longest time. Oh, and the scariest part? He shared how US radars capture objects completely unknown to us every single day. You heard that right, every single day. Now it's time to dive deeper into the rabbit hole and look at some of the craziest UFOs ever captured. Let's start off with amateur footage of massive ships near the moon.
They were either very large craft way up or smaller craft still well above what we could get to.
This has to be the most convincing evidence ever. What you're seeing right now are massive UFOs, alien ships, or perhaps even an extraterrestrial civilization flying by the moon. And trust me, even though these crafts look small, they must be massive in size. Why do I say that? Look at the shadows. For an object to cast a shadow that big on the surface of the moon means only one thing. These aren't just ordinary UFOs. These might just be actual motherships. Of course, the public is divided, as some people believe this footage is obviously edited and rendered. But that's not what the theorists believe. They think it's real. And it's only time now before aliens finally make contact. Speaking of an alien civilization, you know what this reminds me of? The Hut. Behold, ladies and gentlemen, one of the strangest pictures ever captured on the moon. While this might just be a large boulder, it looks awfully similar to a hut. And that just seconds what all those astronauts have been saying all along. There is an alien base on the moon. I know I said this before, but I'm going to keep coming back to it. Why isn't NASA investigating it? Are they afraid of finding something odd? Or worse, are they afraid of provoking something that's there? I have no clue. A bit more about the picture. It was captured by a Chinese rover U-2-2 sent to explore the moon back in 2019. Anyway, remember those ships we saw flying near the moon? Could these be the same ones? These UFOs are pretty massive as well, but notice something different about them. For a ship of that size, they're incredibly fast. Again, I'm not going to get into the legitimacy of the footage, but either way, it's an amazing catch that has enthusiasts all riled up. And if you don't think this is real, tell me what you think about this one. You're going to have to focus and wait while our guy tries to stabilize the footage, but trust me, it'll be worth the wait. You can see what appears to be a shadow of some sort flying across the surface of the moon. There it is again. It's encircled this time around, so you can see it. And did you know hundreds of people commented on this footage, claiming they've seen the exact same things? Well, I guess that's why we don't go to the moon now. But just because we're not going to the moon doesn't mean these UFOs aren't coming to us. What I'm about to show you next will leave you shocked. Get ready to witness an entire cluster of objects float past the International Space Station. NASA can come up with whatever explanation they want for this one, but I'm not buying it. That's an entire civilization just moving in space near the ISS. And for those of you who think the footage is edited, how would you feel after I told you this is from NASA's very own live feed? Crazy, right? Super weird how this never went viral though. I mean, why aren't more people talking about this? This is literally what all of those astronauts have been talking about. We are not alone in the universe. They are not only observing us, but visiting us regularly as well. You can even see one in the next clip.
Okay, Wheels, I'm going to put a rat on the front flap of this.
That's the perfect spot. Just hover near the International Space Station to keep an eye on us. Believe it or not, this isn't the first time something like this has popped up on NASA's live feed. In fact, there are hundreds of videos of objects hovering right outside orbit, almost as if they're watching us. That's really creepy. And considering how the military and government both know of these visitors, could they be in on it? Is the International Space Station really a station, or is it something more than that? What if it's some sort of a communication hut? I mean, that would explain why these strange objects and UFOs are always flying near it, like this one here. And remember how I was saying I'm never going to believe another word coming from NASA? Well, they tried to hide the truth again, claiming this was an antenna cover. Antenna cover? Really? Is this an antenna cover as well, NASA? This clip pretty much proves we're not alone in the universe. These astronauts are busy making repairs outside the ISS, when all of a sudden they completely lose it. That tiny, bright dot behind them isn't supposed to be there. In fact, nothing is supposed to be there. As the panic sets in, you can see all the astronauts look away instantly, almost as if they've been trained to do so. Wouldn't want the public to realize how frequent these visits are now, would we? What do you think about this clip? Is it a UAP or an actual UFO? Or maybe they were expecting it, like this UFO? The scary thing about this footage isn't how there's a UFO coming right at the ISS, it's how the UFO is coming from Earth. And notice how, as it gets closer and closer, someone decides to pan away the camera. I don't know about you, but it seems to me that they're trying to hide something from us. I mean, why would someone do that? It's obvious they didn't want us to see it. But hold up, what if this isn't something foreign? What if this is actually some sort of classified military craft we know nothing of? Whatever it is, it's obvious we have no clue what's going on behind the scenes. Anyway, now it's that time of the video where I begin to reveal sightings so shocking that they'll leave your jaw dropped.
Here, look, see? Guys, come on. What is that?
Now, I know what all those theorists are always talking about. There's no way to explain these strange dancing lights, but one way, they're watching us. They're obviously not drones because, for starters, drones can't move this quickly or freely. Secondly, they're not spotlights either because you can't see their source. But if you're still convinced they're not UFOs, I did some digging around and found out that the person who recorded this footage searched the entire area and found nothing. No spotlights, no drone operators, no military operation or anything. Maybe they're orbs, like these ones. To be fair, this was recorded near Pearson International Airport, one of Canada's largest and busiest airports. And even though these lights seem stationary, it's actually quite common for airplanes to appear that way while landing, especially if they're facing towards you. But the original submission was hours long. How could it be that two planes stayed stationary for hours in the sky? I think it's about time we realize that these are actual orbs that defy all explanations. Again, I'm not certain whether these are in fact UFOs, because you never know what the government is up to these days. They could just be some next-level advanced drones. Did you know one user even commented how these two orbs could just be Mars and Jupiter? What? Now it's time to show you one of the most bizarre phenomena ever. Before I tell you about these strange lights, just check out what happens next. It's almost as if the light bursts into something super bright before splitting back into two. I'm not going to lie, this is such a beautiful yet horrifying sight at the same time. And did you know it's been deleted several times off nearly every platform? Seems to me that someone is trying to hide something here. Anyway, an expert eventually got their hands on the footage and shared the most interesting finding ever. This might not even be a UFO. This could very well be something entering the atmosphere. The bright glow we see a couple of seconds into the footage is actually the moment something enters the atmosphere. I don't know about you, but that sounds scarier to me than a UFO. Or not. These UFOs sure seem scarier. So it's true. There actually is a base on the far side of the moon. That's exactly where these UFOs are headed. It looks like it's an entire school, as we can see multiple crafts, all varying in size, right before they disappear into the darkness. And if you add the whole thing up, it makes a bit too much sense. The fact that there are so many UFO sightings now, especially near the ISS, means these mysterious flying objects are always nearby. The best place to make base would be without a doubt the moon, since it's so close to us. But if that is indeed true, where are these massive alien ships even hiding? Why can't we ever see them? Well, I don't know the authenticity of what I'm about to show you next, but it's still wild and might explain why there's so much activity around the moon. What you're looking at right now is a literal alien city on the moon. This footage was captured by the Apollo 20 mission, you know, the one that supposedly got cancelled. NASA just finished building the Saturn V to support this mission, but ended up cancelling it last minute, claiming the cost was too high. The Saturn V was then rumored to launch something else into space. But what if all that was a lie? What if they lied to us only to go and explore this mysterious alien city on the moon? A lot of enthusiasts believe Apollo 20 was the biggest hoax of all time, since NASA did launch something into space to investigate the moon. Now, do you realize what Buzz and Neil were talking about? And when you think about it, they could be with us here on Earth right now as well. This clip proves just that. Look at how this strange object shoots up from the surface of the Earth before disappearing into deep space. And I think you know where this is from. NASA's live feed, folks. Yape. Looks like even NASA can't contain the truth now. Now, I gotta say, it does kind of look like an acorn, but regardless of what it is, it's clearly not man-made. On a side note, I think we're slowly heading towards full disclosure now. It won't be long now before someone finally declassifies footage that answers the billion-dollar question. We're not alone in the universe. Considering how all these sightings have already become so normalized, this could just be a part of their plan to make sure no one freaks out when the truth is finally revealed. Oh, and you know what this just reminded me of? The Black Knight satellite. If this is the first time you're hearing about the Black Knight satellite, then boy, are you in for a surprise. The Black Knight satellite is a mysterious object near the Earth's orbit that's been there for as long as anyone can remember. It was there when humans first went to space. It's here right now as well, this very present day. But what is it? Well, we'd know if someone dared to go close enough. It's a mysterious UFO that's been hovering in our orbit, just watching us, observing us, for the longest time now. No one knows what it is and where it came from. The fact there are so many theories around it doesn't help either. Some people claim a French astronomer first spotted it back in 1961, with astronaut Gordon Cooper confirming its existence 2 years later. Upon his return, there was a complete media blackout, as everything about the ET satellite never made it to mainstream media. Believe it or not, some people claim that the Black Knight satellite has even made a flight to the ISS. But of course, NASA later debunked it, claiming it was just a thermal blanket floating around in space. I swear, NASA comes up with some of the lamest explanations ever. Let's jump back to some recent UFO sightings. I swear, this one is like something out of a movie scene. You can see a triangular silhouette hiding behind the clouds. This was captured in Shanghai And I gotta say, this is the classic triangle-shaped UFO that's been spotted all over the world. And if you guys were expecting the typical UFO with flashing lights, then this probably hit you hard, because it definitely left my jaw dropped when I first saw it. It's so creepy and eerie, just hiding there right behind the clouds. What do you think this is? A mothership? Some UAP? And I know what half of you are thinking. Why is the camera quality always so bad? It's like all these sightings were recorded using a potato or something. Well, not this one. This is as crisp as it gets, people, and it's not a massive triangle either. It's actually a silver orb just still in the sky. There's a really crazy twist in this incident, and I'll get to that in a bit. But first, more about the silver orb. It was recorded just frozen in the sky for over 20 minutes using both a professional camera and an iPhone. And I gotta say, this is one of the clearest UFO sightings I've ever seen. Anyway, now it's time for that twist. Did you know the original uploader of this clip said he actually met with someone who summoned the orb? You heard that right. This orb wasn't initially there to start with. Someone actually summoned it. I don't know whether I believe that or not, but it's definitely not human, since such technology still hasn't been unlocked. But at the end of the day, these are just amateur sightings. You know who I trust most when it comes to UFOs and UAPs? Pilots. Pilots spend a good portion of their lives up in the air, and from what I've heard, they're used to seeing all sorts of crazy things. But it's important to mention how most of those things are just optical phenomena and nothing else. But when a pilot pulls out their phone to record something, you know it's real. This plane is at least 30,000 feet in the air, and those lights are moving parallel to it with ease. The footage is cut short, but these lights actually followed the airliner around for nearly 8 hours. We know that drones can't make it up so far, and planes aren't really allowed to fly that class either. So, this is the realest UFO or UAP encounter ever. Funny how the government responds to everything by stating they're just hobby drones. I mean, I sure as heck had no idea hobby drones could be flown 30,000 feet in the air. And what freaks me out the most is how we don't even know whether these lights are beings or objects. I mean, just look at this. What is that thing? It seems like a bright light and starts moving like a worm all of a sudden before splitting into two. And I think, we're pretty close to figuring out what these things are when the debate is whether it's a UFO or UAP. Before, people would talk about how this is probably editing or a balloon, but I'm certain now that this isn't something natural. It's not from Earth, and the only thing that's left now is understanding if this is the object or an actual ET or unknown being. Coming back to that triangular UFO we saw over Shanghai. This wasn't spotted in Shanghai, it was actually spotted years before somewhere in California. And whether this is fake or not is a different story, but the fact that the same exact object has been spotted all over the world is just crazy. Just search Black Manta Flying Triangle and read up on all the crazy stories surrounding this classic UFO. Now for the interesting bit. Even though there's no recording, did you know the Pentagon has actually confirmed a triangular-shaped craft? Yep, I saved the craziest for the last, people.
They look to be round-shaped, and it's really weird. It's like a fleet. They're not weather balloons, they're not planes. Look at the speed that thing did.
Ever seen an entire fleet of UFOs during the day? Well, here you go. This was recorded somewhere in Ohio and shows multiple objects just flying by in the sky. These aren't drones either, because they're way too high. I always wondered why we only see those cluster UFOs in the night sky, but it looks like they finally decided to make an appearance during the day as well. Also, is it just me, or does this seem like their arrival or something? I sure hope we don't have to witness a day where there's a dozen UFOs coming right at Earth, gearing up to touch down. Or who knows? Maybe that day isn't far now. Anyway, that's it from my side, folks. So, what do you think? Is there really a secret base on the moon? And are all our astronauts right about the UFOs and aliens? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more interesting videos in the future. Thanks for watching and see you next time.